we're checking out some of the model miniatures as a part of Prop Store's Entertainment Memorabilia Live Auction. These are from films like Star Wars, Star Trek, Back to the Future, and Alien. And I'm going to be chatting with Brandon about the making of these props. It's basically a history lesson in model making in film. Let's get started. Brandon, one of the aspects of filmmaking we're big fans of is just the miniatures and the model making that's been in so many films at different scales, and you have a great selection of things. Of course, let's start with stuff that's recognizable from Star Wars.
Yeah.
These are towers from the Death Star.
Yeah, this is a cool one. I mean, this is made for Return of the Jedi. It's cast out of a very lightweight, rigid foam. It doesn't do anything. There's no motion. They did have some towers with servo motors. This one is just a static dressing one. You can see there's a couple of extra holes in the top of the turret here where they can mount the guns in 2 different positions. And I think that's just like economical filmmaking. You know, let's do one where the guns look like this, one where the guns look like that. We spread them all over, and it looks, you know, a little bit more interesting, slightly more unique visual look to a shot. And the separate lot, but playing on the same theme. This is the under construction Death Star tower. So of course, Death Star 2 is meant to be under construction in the film. And this represents the kind of framework of the tower that's under construction. It's all etched brass with like little bits of styrene. They're just hand colored and hand artworked on it. We've never had come through our hands in the past one of these under construction towers. So that's a fun one.
Both of these are great representations of the detail of model making, because they knew how close these would be to the camera. So you see those behind the scenes pictures were the ones that were very close to the camera, lots of kit bashing, lots of etching, the ones further away, sometimes even unpainted sides. And so you can see all that wears it on sleeves, just the parts from the model kits that they would put on, even though this is a cast piece, you know, retains all of that tiny detail. And I love that combination of photo etch and styrene. That's like a very accessible process that model making still works today for people doing model making.
Yeah, and both these, of course, made at ILM. Another piece made by a different model group. This is from Aliens. That's one of the Hadley's Hope colony buildings, miniature of a building. And that was all done by Robert Skotak and the effects group that did all that effects work over at Pinewood in the UK.
Wow.
So they had a lot of buildings for shots of like the Jordan tractor driving through and things like that at the opening of Aliens.
You see that design language, right? The 45-degree angles, the curves there. It's again, layers of styrene and wire bent together within the paint coat to make it look like it's otherworldly.
Yeah, a lot of times when we get model pieces, it's amazing how simple the construction is. I mean, sometimes they're literally made out of cardboard, but from a couple feet away, you don't realize it. I mean, they're beautifully painted, and the scale of everything is so accurate that it really looks believable. But then you flip the other side, and it's almost amazing how homemade it is.
Right. And you can, at a glance, tell what scale it's supposed to be, identifying markers, you know, whether it's a doorway here for scale or how big these cannons would be, to something like from Star Trek. This is supposed to be thousands of feet, you know, tall and wide, and you get the reference with, you know, the Enterprise
Tiny
there.
little Enterprise,
It's a full space station, but again, done in miniature.
Yeah, and so this is not a filming model. This is like a study model or a concept model. And even though it's not a filming model, it's still beautifully done and executed. I mean, look at the ring work that's been stenciled onto the top of this here with a pen or with graphite or something. I mean, these amazing concentric rings going around it. It really gives it a sense of scale and brings it to life. You've got some small antennas down at the bottom here. This is probably formed out of, I would think, like simple sheets of vac form plastic, you know, just different shapes that they vac formed together. And again, even though it's just a concept model, it's really nicely made. Another piece from ILM.
And you can tell that shared DNA, you know, that line work where you're trying to create a sense of, you know, uniformity, but also randomness in terms of how the spacing, right? If this was a filming miniature, those dots would be for fiber optics, but you get like groupings of 3 dots here for lights and then 2 dots there, but it never looks like it was done by a computer. All looks very
No,
handmade.
that's right. I mean, as you're saying that about the dots, like these little dots here are probably all meant to be windows, tiny little windows, just like on a Starship Enterprise would be. And I think it's also just about filling space and getting a texture into an environment, just like we were talking about when we discussed costumes. We talked about the textures on the fabrics. Same thing here. You've got to have some kind of a texture on your space station to give it a bit of believability.
Right, and then you have like tried and true model making for foliage, for woodland stuff.
So this is Endor, one of the redwoods or whatever they may be of Endor, and this is probably from the set that the stop motion chicken walker went through. You know, because they did have to build a full Endor set for like the chicken walkers walking along, and then it gets taken out by the logs that roll down the hill. This is another ILM piece from Return of the Jedi. And next to that, again, ILM, there's an ILM theme here. This is Doc Brown. This is one of the puppets that went in the DeLorean model.
The motion control DeLorean. And
Yes.
so you just see it through the window, but it still has to have enough detail, you know, to read that 2015 era
Right.
Doc
yeah.
Brown jumpsuit, his shirt, red shirt, and of course his glasses.
Love the glasses. I feel like the glasses are stand-up part, and the Doc Brown hair that's just like cotton batting. It's just, anything to give an effect. And I think this one probably had some kind of little mechanism in the back of it because there's a channel there. Unless that's just how they fixed it to the DeLorean, but I don't know. Maybe it had some kind of ability to turn just a little bit, just to give it a little bit of life in the model.
Right, and that was a pretty big DeLorean if you look at the scale
Definitely,
of
yeah.
this puppet. Now, scale and big ships, the big flagship here, something that you guys have had for a long time and restored, the Nostromo.
Yes, yeah. So this was actually the cover piece in the auction this year. As you say, it has been with us for a number of years. We restored it about 10 years ago, and we decided, the time is right for it to move on to its new home. We're looking forward to seeing where it winds up. It's an amazing piece of history. We really enjoyed having it. As model miniatures go, I think it's probably one of the most memorable sci-fi ship models that you could have. I mean, the entire film Alien takes place in this ship. This is the setting of the film, and this is the hero version, this model that was used for all the close-ups in the film.
And you could tell because all the greeblies are there, like in every angle, no part of it is left untouched by some type of texture, some paint, or some greebly attachment. And obviously a big team effort to put this together. And
Yes.
one of the impressive things for me is consistency throughout, right? Someone was working on one side, someone was working on the other side, but you can tell it just looks like one manufacturer.
Yeah, and I love some of the details like the cockpit and the landing gear. There are areas like that that really shine and really stand out where, parts that we're going to get close-ups in the film. And not everything on it is original. Only one of the 3 landing gear is original. But because that one existed, the restoration team was able to make molds off of the existing one, the one that, dates back to the film, and create faithful copies molded off an original of the other 2. And that was true of most of the restoration that was done. We generally had an example of some part that could be molded to recreate the other parts that were needed. And I think it turned out beautifully. I mean, we've had a lot of people over the past few years who wanted to come in just to see this thing.
Yeah.
Because it's such a memorable part of science fiction.
It's one of those things, we watch those movies, and so often we look, whatever happened to that ship? That was you can only say that of a physical, practical object, and where did it go?
Yeah.
Hopefully not in the trash. And for the Nostromo, it's right here. Like it's a unique piece.
It's so handmade also, like the forms on the front of it here and up by the cockpit. These are just carved out of big blocks of wood. I mean, they literally got a block of wood, started putting these radiuses on it, hollowed it out so they could get this intake grill on it. A lot of the body structure is a very thin wood, maybe a wood called Luan, that they could get wet and kind of, round around a corner of a framework that they've put together. Really kind of, I'll call them old school, traditional handmade model making techniques.
It's such an education to see these in person, to have them all at different scales, different details from different effects companies working in that era. Thank you so much, Brandon, for talking with me about these, and good luck on the auction.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming by. We're looking forward to the big day.